All right, so let's take a deep dive into this movie, Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, from 1973.
Okay.
And kind of try to unpack what makes this film a cult classic.
Interesting.
Especially compared to other B movies, you know, like Manos, The Hands of Fate.
Sure.
So to set it up for you, imagine this. A family is searching for their missing son at a dilapidated carnival. And beneath the surface lurks like this horrifying secret.
Okay.
But the thing about this film is it blends like gothic horror with this gritty, almost like European art house feel.
Ah, interesting.
That really makes it stand out.
I'm intrigued. It's interesting that you mentioned Tone Poem from the reviews. That suggests that it really focuses on the atmosphere and like the visual storytelling.
Yeah.
Which isn't really typical of B movies.
Yeah, and like the setting itself, this crumbling carnival.
Yeah.
It's not just a backdrop, it's like a character itself.
Right.
You know, kind of mirroring this decay and darkness that kind of like seeps into the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this gruesome decapitation on the roller coaster.
Oh, wow.
And then like a scene with a cannibalistic cult feasting underground.
Oh, my goodness.
It's just like a wild ride.
Sounds pretty intense.
It is, and it's so interesting because it seems like the filmmakers were trying to like deliberately subvert these familiar horror tropes and kind of create something uniquely unsettling.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and like take, for example, the character of Sanja, the fortune teller. So Sanja is actually a man dressed in women's clothing.
Oh, wow.
And then you have Bobo, this like menacing dwarf.
Okay.
And then these pallid, almost like zombie-like cult members.
Oh, my goodness.
And they're all so unsettling, yet like strangely compelling.
Yeah, I can see how those unconventional characters can really create this sense of unease.
Yeah.
Just their ambiguity adds to that whole atmosphere.
Yeah. And then you have Mr. Blood, who's the carnival manager. And his connection to this, like, evil Malatesta and his ultimate fate are never fully explained. And it kind of leaves you wondering.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good tactic to keep people guessing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably one reason why this has achieved cult status.
Yeah.
I mean, it really invites a lot of different interpretations.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we have all these reviews, and they have like varying opinions.
Really?
Yeah, some call it fairly typical for its time, while others are praising its unique style.
Sure.
And this like psychedelic vibe, as one reviewer put it.
It sounds like it really challenges people's expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why people would have such different reactions to that kind of film.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this was the only film directed by Christopher Spieth.
Really?
And written by Werner Leipold. So they poured all their creative energy into this one project.
Wow.
And then they vanished from filmmaking.
That's wild. It kind of adds like a mythical layer to the film, you know?
Right.
Like a singular vision, a burst of creativity that couldn't be replicated. Really makes you wonder what other stories they could have told.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is interesting. You know, it really speaks to the power of independent filmmaking.
Yeah.
That like unique voices can come out, you know, outside of the studio system.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, like, why does this film, why is it so enjoyable compared to, like, Manos, The Hands of Fate, which is another cult classic, but it's kind of known for its, let's say, unconventional qualities.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they're both kind of quirky and fun, but Malatesta's Carnival of Blood is something else there. Like, you know, more than just unintentional humor.
Right.
There's a real artistry at play in this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a conscious effort to set the mood and build this atmosphere.
And the way it was shot.
Yeah.
Like, it's often described as dreamlike, almost hypnotic, like drawing you in to this unsettling world.
Yeah, and the lighting and shadow is like...
masterful.
Masterful, yeah. It creates this...
claustrophobia, dread.
Exactly, yeah. It's not just about cheap scares, you know?
Right.
It really uses these like cinematic techniques to get a response out of you.
Yeah.
You know, it's about the experience and not just the story.
Totally. And the blend of genres is so unique.
Yeah.
It's not just horror.
Right.
It's like gothic romance and exploitation.
Yeah.
Even a little bit of surrealism.
Totally.
And it's like this collision of styles.
Always.
That's so compelling.
Yeah. I think that might be what really sets it apart from Manos. You know, like people kind of watch Manos, ironically, but it seems like with Malatesta's, it's more about, you know, the artistic merit.
Yeah.
Even though it's still unconventional.
Yeah.
I think it demands to be taken seriously.
Right.
Even with how absurd it can be.
Absolutely. And it really didn't achieve like mainstream success. But it has a very dedicated following.
Yeah.
For those who appreciate that unique vision.
Yeah. It's a real testament to cult films. You know, they give a space for these alternative voices, unconventional stories, to find an audience.
Totally. Yeah.
It's like a reminder that there's so much more to cinema than just the blockbusters.
Absolutely.
The mainstream stuff.
Yeah. And speaking of finding an audience.
Yeah.
For those who are intrigued, Malatesta's Carnival of Blood is available.
Oh, cool.
On DVD and Blu-ray.
Awesome.
You can experience this for yourself.
Yeah, that's where the fun begins, right? I mean, watching it, letting it kind of wash over you, you know?
Yeah.
And coming up with your own interpretation. I mean, it really rewards multiple viewings, so many layers and nuances.
So we've talked about the plot, the characters, the style, the reception.
Right.
What does it all mean? You know, what's the takeaway for the listeners?
You know, I think this deep dive really shows how important it is to kind of, you know, venture out beyond what's familiar.
Right.
To explore those fringes of cinema, you know?
Totally.
That's where you find the hidden gems, all these strange and wonderful surprises.
It's a good reminder that even, like, these low-budget, independent films can have a real impact.
Absolutely.
When they break the mold and offer something unique.
Totally.
Like Malatesta's Carnival of Blood, it's a testament to creative vision.
Yeah.
Even when it's messy and bizarre.
Right.
And just unforgettable.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the most important thing to take away, to be open to these new experiences.
Yeah.
Embrace the unconventional. Find beauty in the unexpected.
So we're going to wrap up this deep dive into Malatesta's Carnival of Blood.
Okay.
But we want to leave you with a final thought. We've been talking about this film as like this
Yeah.
messy but compelling collision of styles.
Yeah.
So does that make it like more or less effective as a horror film?
That's a good question. You know, we usually think of effective horror as like very precise, you know, a really carefully crafted atmosphere. The jump scares are perfect.
Right.
But Malatesta's kind of throws all that out the window.
Yeah.
It's chaotic and jarring and just unpredictable.
Right. But it still manages to be unsettling. It almost makes you wonder if that chaos, you know, like that sense of unease and unpredictability, if it just taps into something deeper.
Yeah.
You know, deeper than what we expect from horror.
Yeah. You know, those unexpected juxtapositions, you know, the tonal shifts we were talking about before.
Right.
They don't give you that comfortable rhythm that you get in a typical horror film.
Right.
It keeps you off balance.
Yeah.
Disoriented. And that can be way more disturbing than a jump scare you can see coming.
Like the film's messing with us on purpose.
Yeah.
Like subverting those expectations at every turn. It just makes it so visceral.
Yeah.
So engaging.
Yeah, it's not passive viewing. You're really like actively engaging with it, you know?
Yeah.
Trying to make sense of it all.
And that's where the horror is.
Right.
Not the gore, not the violence.
It's that feeling that something's wrong, but you don't know what it is.
Exactly.
It sticks with you. Those images, the questions, it keeps you up at night.
Right.
And in that sense, you know, Malatesta's, with all of its kind of messy brilliance, it achieves something really remarkable.
It really changes how we think about horror.
Yeah.
It's like a reminder that sometimes the best scares come from those films that are different.
Totally.
You know, the ones that break the rules, embrace the chaos.
So if you're thinking about watching this film, ask yourself, what makes a horror film impactful for you?
Right.
Is it that it's polished and perfect?
Yeah.
Or is it that raw energy, that unique vision?
And this deep dive has given you a little taste of what to expect.
Yeah.
A wild ride.
For sure.
Creepy carnivals, unsettling characters, this mix of genres.
It'll stay with you.
Oh, yeah.
It really makes you appreciate these cult classics.
Yeah.
They challenge how we think about cinema, open our minds up.
Totally.
To all these possibilities.
So until next time, keep exploring.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
Keep embracing the strange and wonderful world